Y'all, I waited so long to do this particular episode because I have to talk about something that I didn't think I was ready to talk about. And I have to talk about grief. Grief, particularly grieving with God. So on this show, ain't gonna be no, I ain't got no lesson for y'all. It's not gonna be no theatrics. I don't have no points. I literally set up my camera, put on some comfortable clothes, my house clothes, and we're gonna process. I need y'all. I need y'all to help me on this episode. Help me process some things, process grief, because I've grieved a lot in my life. So I might get emotional. I might, I don't know. But I do want to talk about grief. Now, we're going to have different parts. This is just an introduction to what you guys are going to see. I'm going to have guests on, 2 guests in particular, talk about their grieving process. 2 mothers that lost their son to gun violence. So this is just an introduction on what just my testimony with grief. Now, if you just now joining, I did my very first episode was back in January, season 1. I gave my testimony. I talked about my life and everything that I've been through, and a part of my trauma was grief and surrounding death, grieving. Because you can grieve. Grief is not just subject to just someone that dies. You can grieve a relationship. You can grieve a person that's still alive, that's no longer in your life. You can grieve an old version of yourself. Like, grief is just sorrow. Grief is sorrow and sadness. It's like grief is you're dealing with a loss. It's like a heartbreak. It's like you're dealing with a loss. That's what grieving is. You can grieve the Holy Spirit. Even the Holy Spirit can get grieved when you quench him, or when you are not one with him, or you are separated from the body of Christ. You can grieve the Holy Spirit. That's in the Bible. You can grieve him. So even Holy Spirit feels grief. Grief is such a heavy thing, man. It's such a heavy thing that's hard for me to process. In particular, grief is something that I still deal with, and it sneaks up on you. It sneaks up on you. You can be completely minding your business, and grief will sneak up on you. That's how it does for me. I could be having a great day, and it just sneak up on me, and now I'm crying. Now I'm crying. Now I'm angry. So I'm gonna need y'all help on this episode. I'm just gonna share my story surrounding grief. I think it was Regina King. She said something so powerful, man. She said grief is love not knowing where to go. And I'm like, wow, that is so true, because it's so hard to explain what grief feels in your body. And she explained it so well. I don't know if it was an interview, but she said grief, because she lost her son. She said grief is love not knowing where to go. And that's exactly what it is. Love not knowing where to go. So I think the very first time, now that, and again, y'all, I'm processing, y'all helping me on this episode. But I think the very first time that I felt like grief and I didn't know it is when I lost my grandfather to cancer. And you guys know, if you've been following me, my grandparents raised me from a baby. They raised me, so they were like my mother and father. My granddaddy was like my dad. I call him dad. And he was the father figure in my life. And when he died, I didn't know much about grief. I didn't know much about death. I used to have this thing they call it necrophobia. And y'all, excuse me, I'm so comfortable right now. This is my comfortable position, cause I'm gonna need some help get through this episode. So yeah, the very first so death. I didn't know much about death. So when he died, I didn't understand. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not gonna ever see him anymore? I used to deal with this thing called um necrophobia, and it's just fear. Everything phobia means fear. It's necrophobia, and that's when you have the fear of dead people or dead things. So I used to deal with necrophobia after he died, to where I couldn't go to funerals. I couldn't look at dead people in caskets. It literally scared me like really bad. I was so afraid. Like if I went to a funeral or seen somebody in a casket, it could be a picture. I could be scrolling and see something or a picture, something like that, and I will be up like all night. I wouldn't sleep. I can only sleep during the day. It was like a terrible fear that I had. Thank God I've overcome it. Mostly, I mostly overcame it. I still don't. I'll go to a funeral, but I still don't. I don't go up to caskets. I personally don't like for that to be my last picture of somebody, like in a casket. But now I can go to the funeral. I just sit in the back, But when my grandfather died, and I watched him take his last breath, y'all. I watched this man take his last breath. He was he was in his 60s, which I think is still young. If he didn't have cancer, I believe he would still be alive today. But he had bone marrow cancer, and they caught it like right at the last minute, to where it was too late to get a transplant. So he when he went to the hospital, he kind of like declined quickly. He had gotten really sick. He had wounds that weren't healing. Those were some of the signs that we knew something was wrong. When his wounds weren't healing, like we had to have a nurse come to our house and clean him up and clean his wounds, but they weren't healing. So when he went to the hospital, I'm already getting emotional, man. Because it was a stressful time for me seeing him like that, because I'm used to seeing him on go. I used to see him preaching. I'm used to seeing him cutting grass, talking on the phone, handling business. And then to see him just now he's down. It's like, man, how? How did it get bad this fast? So he was in the hospital. And even when he was declining, though, because again, I didn't know much about death, and I never had anyone close to me die. At that time in my life, 2014. How old was I in 2014? That was 10 years ago. I was 20, because I'm 30 now. I just turned 20. About to turn 20, because he died in January. So 19 at the time. Living my best life out in the world at this time. Wasn't really in church, but I just didn't understand death because I never dealt with it before. So when he had gotten, really sick, even when he was in the hospital, I didn't know that he was going to die. I didn't think that, oh man, my grandfather's about to die. I wasn't thinking that. I thought, all right, it's a regular day. He's going to come back. He's about to go back home, and we're just going to go on with our life. But he didn't. He didn't come home. Next thing you know, he's in hospice, and now he can't talk. Now he can't talk. And I'm like, well, what happened from, like, the hospital to the hospice? Like, how did you was perfectly talking to me. You were talking to me at the hospital yesterday, and now when you get here, like, you can't talk no more. Like, I could not understand that. I could not understand it. And, hospice, the people at hospice, they try to make it better. They give you booklets, tell you about the death process, and so you'll know the different stages of the person what the person will go through. In the death stages, they give you a booklet and let you know. So I didn't even read the booklet. I perused it. I'm like, okay, whatever. Because even when he was in hospitals, I didn't think my granddad was going to die. And then he couldn't talk. I was just so confused, y'all. Like, I think we do a misfortune. Well, I think parents, because I'm not a parent, I think parents do a misfortune, or even the church, when they don't teach us about death, because death is a part of life. Death is in the Bible. Death, it does us a disservice when we don't teach about it at a young age or in the church. I didn't learn about death, not even when he died. I didn't learn about death until I was in my mid-20s. I knew there was a heaven and a hell, blah, 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 all of that. But just no one really taught me about death. So when he was in hospice, at this time, I'm in school, I'm in college. He can't talk. Last time I spoke to him, he was like, it was at the hospital. He calls me, my nickname in my family is Quilt. So he was like, Quilt. I was like, yes, Dad. He was like, you all right? And I'm like, I'm looking at him. I'm like, you the one? I didn't say this, but I'm like, why are you asking me? And then he was just being a dad. Why are you asking me, am I okay? And you the one in the hospital, I was like, yeah, I'm cool, Dad. And I asked him, I said, are you all right? And he he went from dad, it's like he turned into like this scared little boy, and he just struck his man, I'm getting emotional. He shrugged his shoulders. He was just like, as if, hey, I don't know. And that was the last time I spoke to my granddad in that moment. And of course, I didn't think nothing of it at that time. But after that, he went to hospice. Now he can't talk. The last time I seen him, because he couldn't talk much, but he still was in his right mind up until the days he was, going to passing away. And I remember after school, I went to see him. He was in Altamont. And sat by his bedside because he had been asking for me. And he was like, well, he didn't say anything, but he was holding my hand, but he didn't have a lot of strength left. So he was trying to hold my hand, but it was like he was trying to console me, although he was the one that was dying. You get what I'm saying? He was still trying to be a dad, even through the process of him dying. So he was holding my hand, consoling me, because I believe he knew he was going to die. But he was consoling me, holding my hand, but he was so weak and frail to where he couldn't even grip my hand like how he wanted to. So I remember saying, hey, Dad, it's okay. You can relax your hand. Let me hold the grip. Let me hold on to the grip. I got you, type thing. And, yeah, I don't know if it was the next day or a couple of days after, I was in school. I think I was in my speech class or my English class, one of the two. And my aunt called me and was like, hey, you need to get here right now. It's an emergency with Dad. So I dropped everything, told my teacher, hey, I got to go. Got on the city bus, and it was right around the corner because my school was in Altamont. His hospice was in Altamont. So got on the city bus, went straight to the hospice, got off on the main road, and ran almost a mile straight to the hospice, running, just, okay, I'm coming, Dad. I was running like somebody was chasing me, running, get there, and everybody's there. My granddad was very known. He was a pastor. He was a Mason. Family and friends, people coming from out of state, coming to see him. And I go in there, and he is completely incapacitated. He can't talk. Now he can't see. His eyes were like glass and glassy. He can't move. All he doing is breathing. The last thing he had was his hearing. So I'm like, man, my God, what happened? Like, why is he losing? And again, at this time, I didn't know anything about death. I'm like, why is he losing? Like, why is he like this? Why is he going? Why is it a downhill? You know what I mean? And I just could not understand. So I stayed. My godmother was there. I remember my godmother being there. She came and we were singing songs because my family is very musical. We were singing songs and singing to him because he can hear, remember. And he will make like noises to let us know that he hear us, or we would sing a song and he would try to sing along. It was so very emotional, man. It was so very emotional. So then time went by. I broke down eventually because I'm like, man, he's really about to die. He's really about to, this is really about to be it. That's when it kind of hit me. It hit me, but then again, it kind of didn't hit me because I still couldn't believe it, you know. I never lost anybody to death before. So time go on. I think an hour later, people started leaving. And y'all excuse me, I'm processing. People started leaving. And it was just, I think I was about to leave, but I stayed. So it was me, my godmother. I was sitting in her lap because I was so scared. Sitting in her lap. My grandmother was in there. My mother was in there. My aunt was in there. So we all in the room. It's only us left. Everybody else left and planned to come back the next day. So we sitting there, you know, everybody a little on the edge, of course. And I'm sitting in my godmother's lap because I'm scared. And I think we started having small talk. I don't know. But I remember we kind of like got distracted from my grandfather. And then he all of a sudden just stopped breathing for like 15 seconds. And everybody jumped and looked at him. And then he started breathing again. And then next time he stopped breathing for like 30 seconds. And then he started breathing again. And then the next time was like 45 seconds of him not breathing. Then he started breathing again. You could tell he was holding on. And then the next time he stopped breathing for forever. And very, very emotional day for me. I remember my grandmother finally breaking down. I remember my mother, she ran into the bathroom and she threw up. My aunt was just kind of like numb. And of course I cried. And then I got into bed with him. I'll never forget that moment. I got into bed with my granddad and I spooned him. I was behind him. I spooned him, and he was really gone. He was stiff. He hadn't got cold yet, but I remember laying in the bed until he got cold. Until he wasn't warm anymore. So, at that time, even down when it came to the funeral, like his funeral was maybe a week or two after. I don't remember the exact day. But seeing him in a casket and just, I could not believe I lost one of the closest people to me. I was like, man, I can't believe this is happening to me. And of course, I didn't grieve it properly. I found out when I started going to therapy. I didn't grieve him properly, of course, or process his death. I just went on with my life. But it was like I was acting out on not grieving. I started drinking more. I started, it's like my heart turned cold because one of the best parts of my heart, um, I lost. He was dead. And that was my first experience with grief. And then, you know, time went on, went on, and I just never grieved properly. As a psychology student, they got this thing. It's like the stages of grief. I wrote them down. It's 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and guilt. I think I probably went through all of that stuff, but didn't know what it was or dealt with it in the wrong way. And then, after his death, years later, I had been finding out stuff about my grandfather that, shocked me, things that I didn't know about his life that I probably wouldn't have been able to handle at that time because I wouldn't have understood it, or I probably would have defended it. But just as I got older and hearing things and stuff coming out, and I started grieving him again a couple of years ago because of the things that I was finding out about him that I had no idea about. I started grieving him again, and I was just angry. Like, I was so mad at him. I was mad with the dead. I was so mad at him. Like, mad because I felt like I was in the dark. I'm like mad because all of the stuff I was finding out. Mad because I couldn't ask him about it. He couldn't answer me. He was dead. Just angry, man. So I had to go to therapy for that. I'm still grieving him. I don't think there's an end date or end moment. Like, I don't think there's a moment, or I don't think you ever get over grieving somebody, especially in death. I don't think you ever get over it. You just learn how to live without them. It's like you have to get to know another version of yourself without them in your life. So you used to be this person because you had them in their life. Now you have to get to know this person, or get to know a new life without the person. Find out who you are without the person. Find a new normal. So I did that eventually. Found a new normal. Went on with my life. That was my first experience with grief. And of course, I've grieved relationships and grieved people that were not, dead and all of that. But my deepest pain with grief came with death, losing someone close to me. And then, fast forward, and thank y'all for letting me process and talk y'all ear off. I'm over here just talking like I'm in therapy. So then, time goes by. I lost, and I might get emotional again, but a year and a half ago, like a year and a half, it's about to be 2 years, actually. My godmother, the lady I often talk about on my podcast, who helped me when I came back to God at 18, 19, I met her at church. She just kind of stepped in and filled that void as a mother. She was really like, my therapist asked me too last week. She asked me, she said, so now that you're here with your life, you're not, drinking, smoking, you're not clubbing and all that stuff, smoking weed. She asked me, she said, what was the thing that brought you back to God or brought you to the place that you are right now? And I had to think about it because I'm like, I would say it was God. Ultimately, it was God, but I was thinking about it and I'm like, it was my godmother. She really was like a lifeline in that moment that pulled me back to God. Like, God used her to pull me back to him, bring me back to himself. But I had to think about it. Like, man, Ultimately, it was God, but I think God used my godmother at that time to bring me back. She had so much patience. She helped me tap into femininity again. Um, she was that lifeline in that moment. She threw the life jacket, you know, and brought me back in. And for 10 years, it was her and I. Excuse me, y'all. It was her and I. She helped me. She taught me how to cook. She taught me how to take care of myself. She taught me things regarding down to how to bathe properly, y'all. Cause I was a mess back then. I was a complete funky mess. She taught me how to bathe. She taught me how to cook. She would get my hair done at the salon. It was literally like I was reliving childhood. I had a redo with a new mother. It really felt like that. We would go to the hair salon. We would go to the mall, get our nails done. She really was. She stepped in and was there for me when my grandfather died. Was there for me. She was sitting there and watched him take his last breath with me. I was sitting in her lap. She man, I'm getting emotional, bro. She yeah. So my therapist asked me that, and I was like, yeah, it was her. She was a lifeline. And a year and a half ago, the crazy part is, y'all, my godmother died a year and a half ago of cancer as well. And it was like I went through the same experience. It's like I was reliving the experience with my grandfather. Like I was down to her being in hospice. I'm like, God, I'm going through this again. And she was young. She was in her early 50s. I'm like, God. I remember when she first told me she had cancer. It was like in January. And when she found out, it was too late too. She found out at stage 4 of pancreatic cancer. So she tried it. They tried everything. I used to take her to chemotherapy. I watched her decline, man. It's like she found out in January and she died in September. It was so fast. Chemotherapy, it would work and then it would not work. And then the doctors basically gave up on her and said there was nothing they could do. I remember her and I last conversation in the hospital. And I don't know why I'm trying to hold back tears, but this is really, really fresh with her, and it's hard for me to talk about it. I remember I came to the hospital, and I believe she was a deep believer in Jesus. Like she had such a great relationship. She's the one that taught me how to pray. Like literally one night came over. She taught me how to tap in and pray and get into the presence of God. We laid on the floor and she showed me, she prayed and let me watch her. And she showed me how to just lay and be in the presence of God. She showed me that. And I remember I walked in, she was kind of like tripping because she thought it was like, I think she knew she was going to die, but she tried so hard not to die. Cause she didn't want to go. Because in her family, cancer ran in her family, and she always would say, I'm not dying from cancer. But she will always let different stresses of life and family stress her out till she ended up getting cancer and not taking care of herself and not being able to catch it because she was so engulfed in taking care of her family and letting people stress her out and doing for people and not looking out for herself. So she was kind of like tripping because I was like, hey, I'm here. She was like, I can't say everything that she said because she talked about a few people confidentially, but To me, I remember sitting with her and feeding her grapes. I still have that video. And she looked at me and she was like, and she bust out crying. She said, I didn't I don't want to leave you like this. She said, I did not want to leave you like this. And you know me, I'm still believing like you're not going anywhere. You know, God, I'm getting emotional. But she said, and bust out crying, she said, I'm so sorry for leaving you like this. And she just kept saying it. She said it wasn't, I didn't mean to. Like she was blaming herself for the cancer in her body. And I just kept saying, you're not going anywhere. Just to, comfort her. I didn't have any words to say much. I didn't know what God was going to do. So we calmed her down. Everything's good. She ended up going to hospice, but she had hospice at her home. She wanted to be at home. And I remember that next night I came over because the day she talked to me, that was the last day she could speak. So I went over to her house, and she was, at that time they didn't have the hospice bed yet, but she was laying in her bed. She was sleeping because she was, when you're declining, your body has to get energy. Your body has to work so hard for energy. So she was sleeping, and gosh, man, I'm emotional, man, because I miss her so much, y'all. I miss her so much. She was sleeping, and I remember I got in the bed with her. I had my mask on, and she, had lost all of her hair. And I remember laying down, and she looked at me once and then went back to sleep. And I remember just rubbing her stomach, because her stomach was like getting swollen because of the cancer was spreading. So I was rubbing her stomach while she was sleeping, and I did it for like 2 hours. 2 hours straight. And then I finally left, and I said, I love you. She said, okay, because she was, declining. And then the next day she couldn't talk no more. They brought the hospice bed. She couldn't move. She couldn't do for herself, but she can still hear. And she was looking, and she still had her right mind. Very, very observant, very coherent. Of course, it was a lot of drama at that time, a lot of stuff going on. And what hurt me the most is that she couldn't talk, but she could nod her head. She had her right mind all the way up to her death. She never lost her mind. She could hear. She can eat. She just couldn't really move her body. She would jerk here and there, but she couldn't like feed herself, clean herself, anything like that. And I just knew she hated that. Nobody wants people doing for them and wiping them and all of that. It's such a embarrassing feeling. So I think she probably survived like another week, maybe. And I told God, like, I can't explain the anxiety that I felt that whole process. Because again, I watched my grandfather die, take his last breath in hospice. And I was like, God, look, I can't take that no more. I can't watch her die. Like I was asking God, like if she, whenever you decide to take her, please don't let me be there. I didn't want to see it. And I had so much anxiety because it's like I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there for her. But it was like walking in the room, it was so much anxiety. Because it's like any moment now, this woman can take her last breath. Because the people, the hospice people will say, they'll tell you like, hey, she can go any moment. They try not to give you hope, And each day I went to see her, I'm like, God, look, I can't handle it. I can't handle watching her die. I don't want to see it. So I went. I would sing to her. We watched TV. Um, just I just sat with her and just she held my hand. She would touch my face here and there. She would be in and out of sleep. I would feed her ice because, in that stage, they can't really eat. You can't make them eat unless they, you know, want to. So we would feed her like butter pecan ice cream or ice or something like that, or soup or water. You had to spoon feed her. So it was tough, man. And then I remember going home and her my godmother, her husband, my godfather, he wasn't doing good at all. He didn't know how to deal with it because he didn't want his wife to die, of course. So, and of course, whenever there's a death or something in the family, that's when people show their true colors. People act a fool doing like funerals and stuff like that. Like if it's a death in the family, that's when the family act a fool. You be seeing people like true colors when people die. Like, man, people be acting a fool. And that's exactly what happened with my godmother. Them people was acting a fool. I got threatened. Them people, because I had to plan her funeral, me and her, one of her close friends. And it's like people and family come out of the woodworks and now they think they know what the person wants. Like, no, she wouldn't want that. No, I don't like that outfit. No, I don't like that picture. Like, it's so dumb. Like, you would never, I'm getting mad thinking about it. But it's like y'all weren't there and now you're trying to be there after she's already gone, you know? And I'm not against you being there, but you're trying to make decisions. And like, it was so stressful for me. I ain't never planned a funeral, but it was so stressful hearing people, hearing their complaints, hearing what they want, what they think she wanted. And it's like, come on, bro. It was really stressful. It was really, really stressful. So she, of course, eventually, she eventually passed away. I remember they called me. It was a Saturday. I went to, I think I went, I went to the house. Of course, a lot of people were there. And she was still laying in the bed, cold. Because, they let you spend time with the person that just died before they take them. And, man, it was so much anxiety in my body. I did not want to say goodbye. I did not want to go say goodbye. I remember walking in the room and seeing her just cold and stiff. It's cold and stiff. She was not there. She was just gone. And like I remember she still had her scent. Because I remember kissing her hand and just smelling her. She still had her scent on her. It was such a terrible time, man. Such a terrible time. I went into her office and sat in her office chair and just sat in her office and just looked and just, I was trying to feel her, like the healthy her. I was man, um I just wanted I just wanted to I wanted to I just wanted I just wanted to feel her. I wanted to feel her healthy self. I just wanted her presence, man. Although she was in the other room dead, I just remember sitting in her office chair, looking at her books, looking at her handwriting, just trying to just feel her again. Because I couldn't feel her body. She wasn't in her body anymore. And man, it was such a tough thing for me. It's still tough to this day dealing with her death. I just couldn't believe it. So I guess if I had like um excuse me, y'all, I'm trying to find my words and my expression through my tears. I guess if I have any encouragement for this episode, it's just to grieve with God. Don't leave God out of your grief. The biggest lesson and the biggest hit that I took when grieving the death of my grandfather or the death of my godmother, it's just include God, grieve with him, include him in your emotions, and feel them. Feel them. Grief will sneak up on you. It sneaks up on me at the most inopportune times. It's hard for me to talk about it. Get therapy if you need it. Process it with someone like I'm processing it with y'all. Don't be afraid to show your emotion, your tears. But don't go through it alone. Just include God in your grief. Include him in it. No matter how angry you are, no matter what stage of grief that you're in, include him in your loss, whatever you're grieving. So that's it, y'all. Next week, I'm going to have some guests on, and they're going to talk about their process of grief. Sorry I didn't have a lot of points or tips for y'all, but this is where I'm at with grief. Which is why I got guests to come and help me out. But I'm going to see y'all next week with my guests, and we're going to dissect and talk about grief a little bit more. So, again, y'all know what to do. Subscribe, add me, follow me, healing_exchange, Instagram, Facebook, Jaquilla McFarley, TikTok, Jaquilla MC. Forgive me if y'all don't see the intro and outro of the video on this episode, because again, my software is acting up. So you may see it or you may not. The video and the audio may just start with me talking. I'm not sure. So, but I'll see y'all.